Hello, Mark Sutton with HurricaneTrack.com here. It is 10:40 p.m. Eastern Time, and it is time to talk about the latest advisory package from the National Hurricane Center. It was released 20 minutes earlier than the normal, the prescribed time, 11 p.m. Eastern. And so here it is, the headline, potentially catastrophic Category 5 Irma, getting very close to the northern Leeward Islands. Winds are still 185 miles per hour, confined to probably a small area, those Category 5 winds, but they are there nevertheless, and the air pressure, a pretty astonishing 916 millibars. That's very, very low. That is absolutely Category 5 pressure. We have seen that in other hurricanes that had Category 5 winds. And the important part here is moving west-northwest now at 15 miles per hour, so at least it's still moving fairly quickly, and it's not slowing down. That is tremendously important. Let's look at the public advisory here and pick out some very, very important pieces of information. I'm going to zoom in so we can see the text better. Not only for you, but for me. I've been up and looked at this so much that I need all the help I can get. So the location is at 17.4 north and 61.1 west. So it's crossed 60 degrees of longitude. And so it is 50 miles to the east-northeast now of Antigua and about 50 miles to the east-southeast of Barbuda. And that's important because this is the bearing, that 285 degrees there. It could be headed right at Barbuda. So that's a very big problem for them. Antigua, I think, will avoid a direct hit. We'll look at that on the satellite picture. That doesn't mean you should go outside and dance around in it or anything. It's still very dangerous, but the core of the hurricane passing over your location is where you're going to receive the Category 5 winds possibly. And who cares, right? I mean, it could be Category 3 or 4, and it could still be very destructive. So please respect this and don't try to second guess it, especially since it's nighttime. All kinds of watches and warnings. Again, you can go to the public advisory at the National Hurricane Center homepage at nhc.noaa.gov, or very few people know about this little shortcut, Hurricanes with an S, hurricanes.gov. Click on Public Advisory, and you get all of this information that I'm going over now, and it is detailed, but I want to pull out the information that I think is the most important, and the wind speed we've gone over, the lat long, the bearing, etc. Hurricane force winds extend outward up to 50 miles, so I think that's come down just a little bit, but tropical storm force winds are 175 miles from the center. I believe the hurricane force winds were at 60 miles at one point. And then this right here is very important, that the pressure was measured, and it's an estimated air pressure from the Air Force and the NOAA Hurricane Hunter aircraft. So it's not just satellite estimate, but they have instrumentation in there at 916 millibars. That's extremely low, and that is resulting in a very tight gradient of wind between the low pressure in the center and higher pressure on the outside, creating this huge evacuation of air, and that's causing the extreme winds. It's absolutely incredible to see, but unfortunately it is deadly at the same time. So the storm surge is part of this hazards affecting land section, and I mentioned this earlier. There are some areas in here that could receive up to 20 feet. A lot of this is going to have to do with where the wind is coming onshore. And that could be as it goes past you. Maybe when it's coming towards you, the winds are, you're on the leeward side, but on the water. But when it goes past you, you are now on the windward side on the water, and that surge can rise very quickly. And of course, with the surge is going to come very, very high, damaging, battering waves. Of course, the winds are just going to be ridiculous, very frightening, thunderous, absolutely like deep bass wind that sounds like so much energy being released. It's extremely unnerving. I have felt it one time in a Category 4 with Hurricane Charlie out in the open, taking wind measurements. Extremely foolish that we did that. We survived, but it is not something that's pleasant for sure, and you're going to have to seriously hunker down, protect your head, protect your body, and get under the mattresses. Put the mattresses above you and to your sides. Use pillows, blankets, comforters. Don't smother yourselves, but protect yourselves like a bulletproof vest would be. Keep that torso and especially your head protected so that you do not have blunt force trauma if stuff goes flying. And use the smallest room in the interior of your building to do so. Very heavy rainfall, some 20-inch amounts in some areas. My best advice here, read this public advisory. Take the time to do it, and it's got a lot of information in here. But that bearing of 285 degrees, at least we're making progress. It needs to be more if we want it to clear some of these islands and not make a direct hit. And then the hurricane force winds a 60-mile area from the center of circulation. So the cone of probability, the forecast cone, etc., just updated here, thank goodness. And you see that this sort of red color right here, this brown or whatever it is, that's the hurricane force wind area. And let me just zoom in because we can. So this is your area of hurricane force winds right here. And then around this is the tropical storm force wind field. And it's not a perfect circle. You have different radii in different directions, and already spreading over a good deal of the islands overall. And those are going to become more increasingly prevalent as these bands move through. But the worst of it's going to come in when the core gets there. The center of circulation, which is surrounded by a ring of thunderstorms that go up high into the atmosphere. That's called the eye wall. That's the core. And that's where those Category 5 winds are located. And it's hard to say if they rotate around the circulation rapidly. They could be on the west quadrant, the east side. You just never know. So you need to be ready for that. You will know when it's coming because it is going to sound like a giant tornado headed your way, but it's going to take several tens of minutes perhaps instead of just 30 seconds to a minute like a tornado would. Over the next few days, what's going to happen? Well, we will definitely begin looking at this more and more. Obviously, Puerto Rico, the U.S. British Virgin Islands, the Turks and Caicos, Dominican Republic, Haiti, Cuba, and then eventually up into the northwest Bahamas, perhaps, and the state of Florida are all going to potentially be impacted here. Swells will really start to generate and get their way out here before too long, eventually reaching the southeast coast. Surfers, you're going to love it, but it could be very dangerous, so be careful with that. This is going to be bringing an incredible amount of energy and overall hazards to people all across these areas of the Atlantic Basin here, the western and the southwestern portions of the North Atlantic Ocean. So this is it. This is what we talk about, being prepared for the worst of the worst. Here it comes. Looking at the satellite animation tonight, this is the colorized infrared. And when I see these red cloud tops in here, that indicates right here at the end of the scale, the right-hand side of the scale, some of those cloud top temperatures probably getting close to minus 50, minus 60 degrees Celsius, pushing up against the stratosphere, way up high, right around the ring of the core, the eye itself. And this will fluctuate. This is going to go through what are called eye wall replacement cycles, a very little understood process where an outer eye wall forms, the inner eye wall will collapse, the outer eye wall contracts, and it goes through these ups and downs. And sometimes when it comes out of one, it's a little weaker, but then it contracts and starts the engine up again, so to speak, and you can get a more intense hurricane. And we just can't predict that, but it's part of the science and part of the phenomenon. Looking at these islands in here, let me zoom in. Come on, please work with me here. Yes. Oh, I'm hitting shift. I need control. And I need sleep. All right, so what do we have? This is Antigua right here. This is Barbuda up here. And it looks like the eye is going to pass very close to Barbuda. And then up here you have Anguilla, and you have the St. Martin. And then just south and east of here, tucked in there, is St. Bartolome. And I don't know the name of this island, and I apologize, but at least it looks like the eye will miss that area, the core. But these areas right here, if we just extrapolate this out, you know, some kind of wobbling along like this seems reasonable. Maybe a shallower angle than that is possible. So something like this over the next several hours, putting these islands in the core and eventually the eye of Hurricane Irma. and you will know when it's coming. I really wish this would wait until daylight, but wishful thinking is not a planning tool, just like hope isn't a planning tool. Unfortunately, especially here for Barbuda, this is going to be coming in the middle of the night, and then as it approaches Anguilla and vicinity, maybe closer to dawn. When it's daylight, you just don't lose the sense of orientation that you do when it's nighttime. It's horrible. It's already bad enough, but when it's at nighttime, your primal fear begins to take over, and you get that fight or flight reflex, and you can lose track of time, you can lose your orientation. There are only a handful of people, considering the Earth's population, that have ever had to deal with that, and it is truly horrific at nighttime. So any break we can get with this hitting in the day would be much appreciated by our hurricane down here, but you know what? It doesn't care. It's just doing what nature does, and we happen to be in the way. You know, looking at it from a scientific perspective, this feathering outflow is almost as perfect as you can get. And that's, not the appropriate word, but from a meteorological perspective, this is your perfect storm. This is your intense hurricane, a rarity on Earth, thank goodness. But there it is. Now, in terms of Puerto Rico, it would have to really just kind of chug along here like that to get the core to go over Puerto Rico. I guess it's possible, but I'm thinking, as you see my line, it's even trying to go north of that. We're going to be able to watch this, and if you're up all night, I'm not going to be, because I've got to get some sleep. If I'm not sleeping, then I'm not going to be able to help very many people with my info. But if you watch this, watch these latitude lines. I want to just show you one more thing, and then I promise I'll move along. Let's zoom in real tight. Okay, so this is 17 degrees of latitude, I do believe, because that's 15, 16, 17, and here's 18 up here. So if you stay up all night, you can just kind of draw lines if you've got a drawing program. The one that I use is called Ink2Go, Ink, I-N-K, the number 2, and the word G-O. There's plenty of others, I'm sure, Firefox plugins, etc. But you can just kind of do this and see how it's moving, and we'll see. I mean, it's not going to help anybody there, but maybe if you're in contact with them, you can tell them when it's coming. If they lose communication, then they're on their own. Just a quick geography lesson. What are we talking about down here? Very small islands, some of them very close together. Anguilla here, of course, the St. Martin area, and then St. Bart's, as we call it, Barbuda over here. I'm not going to give Antigua the all clear, but at least this is looking better. And then just smaller islands dotted throughout the area. Boy, just a terrible time of it. I really feel for the people down here and what they're going to endure over the next few hours. In terms of the British and U.S. Virgin Islands, what it says up here, the settlement, the British Virgin Islands, definitely in the line of fire. I feel like if the eye passes over Anguilla and vicinity, that it could easily pass over, and who knows if that's going to be the correct angle. But these are the areas that are under the line of fire for sure, and we just better hope that core does not come over here to Puerto Rico and move across like this and give San Juan a direct hit. There are skyscrapers there, as I was talking to a colleague of mine from the Weather Channel just a little bit ago. We can certainly avoid that. That would be great. And then down the road, Turks and Caicos, and up the Bahamas chain, and eventually maybe southeast Florida, maybe the southeast U.S. We'll just have to see. Real quick look at the radar loop out of San Juan. All is quiet for the most part. This will fill in tomorrow. We'll be able to watch this very closely. I have embedded this particular graphic in my app, the Hurricane Impact app for iPhone, and it is in the tracking section. And if you just sit there and watch it, it'll refresh itself every minute. And you can just sit there and watch this, and you get the newest images as they come out from the next rad in San Juan, Puerto Rico. I will also be putting other graphics in the app tomorrow morning to show annotation, just like I did here on the satellite picture. Of course, it'll be still frames, but I'll be able to draw lines on here. We can get ideas of where it's going, and I'll publish that into the app about every hour as well to help people who are following in the app know what's going on. And that's the Hurricane Impact app for iPhone. If you don't have it, hey, now's a good time to get it in the App Store. One last tab before I go. I am definitely not ignoring what's possibly coming, but the model mayhem What am I supposed to say? I don't know where it's going to go. That's the bottom line. The official forecast shows that, the center of circulation somewhere over here in 5 days, but some of the modeling is starting to turn this north earlier and, maybe bringing it up into the southeast coast. Maybe it's going to be the southwest coast of Florida. We don't know. We absolutely do not know just yet. And so it's imperative for people to chill across this region, calm down, don't panic, and of course that's falling on deaf ears, I'm sure. But man, the stuff I've been reading about us is like, holy mackerel. This could end up in a lot of different places anywhere around here. You just never know. And that's the truth of it. So we're going to get to that. But that's still 4, 5, 6 days away minimum, and we have time to react appropriately instead of just surging to the stores and buying everything in ransack mode, which is probably already too late. But man, come on, we talk about this every year, and very few people, I guess, pay attention because they figure, it's not going to happen to me. It's just human nature. We're not going to get into the behavioral part of it too much, but man, we've been telling you so. And here we are. All right, I got to get some sleep. You need to get some sleep. And the people down that are going to be impacted that are still away from the core in the next few hours, I hope they get some sleep because they're going to need their energy and their wits about them. We can hope and pray for them, whatever you believe in, etc. Now's the time to pull it out, and maybe it'll make a difference. The one thing that can make a difference is everybody being positive and being very helpful and avoiding any of the negativity and the fake information. That's not helpful. So let's be on the right side of this and see if we can make a difference and maybe save everybody down there. That would be great. That's an ambitious goal, but that's what we hope for. I'm going to get some sleep. I'll be back at the crack of dawn, and I'll go over the 5 a.m. advisory, and we'll put up. I'll put up another video, and we'll see what's happening then tomorrow morning. I am Mark Sudduth for HurricaneTrack.com. Best of luck to everybody down there, and I mean that sincerely. A few of you I have gotten to know quite personally over the course of today. I'll be checking with you tomorrow, and I'll have a video for everybody else who's been tuning in tomorrow morning, like I said, around 6 a.m.